With this tiny nail-sized chip, we are going to change the world, and the great state of Indiana will be in the center of that change.
At the time, it was the largest economic development deal in Indiana history. Korean semiconductor giant SK Hynix announcing plans for a $4 billion plant and 850 jobs at Purdue University. Just weeks later, Amazon topped that in a big way, with plans for an $11 billion data center and 1,000 jobs in New Carlisle near South Bend, all part of continued record-breaking investment and jobs numbers in the Hoosier state. The man leading the charge, Hoosier native, Secretary of Commerce David Rosenberg. He's my guest this week on the Business and Beyond podcast, presented by PNC.
I think there's no reason why Indiana can't be the place to do business over the next decade.
David Rosenberg with a bold statement about Indiana's future. And with good reason. This Southeast Indiana native is leading an economic development effort that is on track to shatter last year's record numbers. And I'm pleased to be joined on the podcast this week by Indiana Secretary of Commerce, David Rosenberg. David, welcome.
Great to be with you, Gary. Thanks for having me.
Well, we are together, I should mention, as we are taping this at the second Engage Indiana Series event of 2024 in Southeast Indiana, specifically on the campus of IU Southeast, and a big day ahead as we talk about big economic development, business and related issues here in this part of the state. As you look at the state overall, though, David, you know, the old phrase, Indiana is on a roll takes on, I think, new significance because there have been so many major recent announcements. Just last week, Amazon with the new data center announcement in New Carlisle near South Bend, $11 billion, largest economic development deal in state history. Google upping its investment in Fort Wayne at a data center to $2 billion. I want to talk about Toyota's expansion in a minute. But to begin, these data centers, everybody's talking about it. Indiana, like overnight, seems to have become this data center hub. What's going on?
Yeah, first, this goes back about 3 years and give a ton of credit to Governor Holcomb, the legislature, my predecessor, Brad Chambers, where we really moved economic development from a transactional organization to a strategic one, meaning we were going to go get the economy we wanted for the state to really drive the state for the next 30, 40, 50 years, not just sit back to see who would call us and said they want to come here. And so we've been leaning in hard to industries like semiconductors and EV battery, bio life science, data centers and AI, defense, ag tech. And it's led to this record success that we've had. Back-to-back record years, over $71 billion of committed investment in the last 9 quarters, the largest quarter in state history, Q1 2024. You mentioned the largest deal in state history. So Indiana's economy is truly on fire and we have a ton of momentum. But what's really great about that is it all fits together in that ecosystem. So when you look at data centers, it's not just a singular data center locating in a part of the state, but it is truly feeding into that next gen AI. When you look at SK Hynix in West Lafayette, SK Hynix is the 6th largest semiconductor company in the world, the 2nd largest packaging company in the world for semiconductors. We have over 8 semiconductor operations now operating in the state just in the last 2 years. So when you take the semiconductor production, the packaging, and tie that to the data centers, that's how you lean into next gen AI. And it really struck me when SK Hynix was here in town and they said, with all of this ecosystem, with the data centers, AWS, Google, Meta, plus the semiconductor side, Indiana can really be the mecca of next gen AI. And that's really exciting as we build that economy of the future.
That's fascinating. When you talk about next gen AI, to the extent possible to kind of dumb it down to folks like me, what does that mean? I mean, when you talk next gen AI in general terms, what is that?
Yeah, AI has been a critical part of everyone's life for a long time now. When you look at our agriculture sector, farmers were one of the first adopters of AI on tractors and their farm equipment as they're working in their fields. And that has only grown now into, things we use every day, whether it be Chat GTP and what that looks like in the next generation, but the ability for these sequences to run billions and billions of scenarios at a time for those predictive analytics and those predictive outcomes is hugely impactful. You look at a company like Eli Lilly with the investments that they're making in AI, where it improves patient care, improves the quality of the product. AI is such a central component of everyday life right now. And to be at the hub of it and leading that next gen AI is really exciting.
Well, you talk about the major investments in data centers and that being part of a bigger picture, a connected picture, if you will, with the microelectronics, the chip manufacturers and others. Put in perspective from a competitive standpoint, where does Indiana sit with some of the other big players? Are we competitive with those big players? Where do you see things going?
Absolutely. I think there's no reason why Indiana can't be the place to do business over the next decade. When you look at our very aggressive strategic approach, combined with a lot of the macroeconomic factors that are happening around the world, after COVID, there's been reshoring and modernization. You see a lot of that geopolitical conflict. These companies, both domestic and international, are looking for that secure US-based production and supply chain. And that's what we do better than anyone else. We make things and we send it all over the world. As those companies worldwide are looking to make that investment, Indiana is really standing out. We've had a great business climate, low cost of doing business, a great workforce for decades now. So that allows us to go play offense into these industries. And so it's a really exciting time. A lot of these companies are not going to the coast because there's higher taxes, unstable business environments. You have a challenge with workforce. So we see our competition, depending on the industry, as really the Midwest and the Southeastern states. And I think we've been able to win more than our fair share of those deals because of that stable business environment and bringing the entire ecosystem of partners to help support that business long term.
And I thought it was interesting what you said earlier in that strategic shift at IEDC to really go after the industries that Indiana sees as beneficial for the long-term economy, semiconductors, new energy, the data centers. So really, Indiana is playing offense in a sense.
Sure. We have a great base to jump off of, obviously, with our agriculture economy, with our bio-life science economy. Again, the great business policies and low cost of doing business, low cost of living, that allows us to be aggressive in these industries. And, we are very prudent and judicious with taxpayer resources. And so our feeling is if we're going to invest in a deal and provide incentives to a company, that deal needs to have a long-term return on that investment for the state. So what are those economies that will be driving our state for the next 30, 40, 50 years, and not just, the next 2 or 3, but also with these industries, we've seen that they are the high wage careers, not just jobs. And so in 2023, for the deals that we incentivized, the average annual salary was $75,000 per year, over $36 per hour. So if you can take someone that's making $16, $18, $20 an hour now, get them into a job, skill them up with our partners, get them into a job that's making $36 an hour, that's the opportunity to really change someone's life, provide better health outcomes, better education outcomes, and that generational change that we should be using our resources for. And so that's why we've really leaned into these industries, not only for the economic side of it, but to truly empower Hoosiers to take that next step and be able to create that generational change for their families.
Talk about changing lives. I think there's a case to be made for changing, transformational change taking place in communities around the state of Indiana. When you look at, as an example, one of the big announcements mentioned last week, $1.4 billion, almost got lost in the fact that, you had the big announcement at Amazon and the big announcement at Google, but Toyota expanding yet again, $1.4 billion at its massive plant in Princeton, all part of the electrification of the auto industry. So Indiana continues obviously to be a top manufacturing state in the nation, but a different, manufacturing continues to change. What kind of challenges does that put on the state, on communities, others, educational institutions to train the types of workers needed for these newer industries?
Yeah, one thing I want to highlight, though, and you bring up a good point, all the big attraction, the big company names, they get all the headlines, which is great, and they're deserving to put Indiana continue on the global stage. But 70% of the deals we do are with existing Indiana companies, helping them grow, continue to expand in the state, increase their profitability. And that means the most to me. It shows that we have the workforce, the talent, the stable business climate for those companies to not only be here, but to reinvest here and continue to grow. And Toyota is a great example of that. And they are a great partner in that part of the state. On the workforce side, what we do really well, I think better than any state, is that we bring all the partners to the table to ensure that company has long-term success here in Indiana. We don't always have to have the highest upfront incentive offer for to get a company to locate here, because we bring all of our partners, whether it be Notre Dame, IU, Purdue, any of the private universities. You look at Ivy Tech, which has absolutely stepped up and been such a critical partner, the largest accredited community college in the nation. They can take a program in one part of the state and replicate it at their campuses throughout. And that's been a huge benefit. When you look at Stellantis and Samsung SDI's investment in Kokomo, Ivy Tech Kokomo was a critical reason why they're putting $6 billion of EV battery plants in Kokomo. So much so that Samsung's first piece of equipment is not going into the factory floor. It is going to Ivy Tech Kokomo to train those workers. And so government, I see our position as being a facilitator between those educational partners and industry. And when those two are talking and creating the programs that they need, it creates that seamless pipeline of workforce and talent that the company needs for the long term.
Let's take a look at New Carlisle, because I find that interesting. Small community just outside of South Bend, with two massive projects up there. The Amazon data center project, largest in state history. GM and Samsung SDI also putting a major EV operation in that part of the state. That's transformational for that community. I mean, that economy, the suppliers, the vendors, the others, ancillary industry that comes in. What are the challenges and opportunities that a place like New Carlisle, what are they facing?
Yeah, absolutely. It is absolutely huge, and give the locals up there a lot of credit. They have really leaned into these economies of the future, have been aggressive in attracting these companies, and made the business case for what that is. I think you see a lot of momentum in the northwest and north central part of the state. When you look at Notre Dame being there as an anchor, Ivy Tech operating there, the new double track starting service here in a few days is going to be absolutely essential to cut down that time from downtown Chicago to these new industries by over half. But then I think also businesses are really flagging that it's not just them making the investment, but the state is also investing in itself. You look at a program like READY, the state's appropriated $1 billion for quality of life and population growth initiatives in all 92 counties and 15 regions. That $1 billion from the state is expected to leverage over $20 billion of outside capital to go into population growth and quality of life initiatives. I can tell you no other place in the country, no other state is doing anything like that. And so the regions are really leading that charge at the local level with their priorities to add housing and trails and arts and culture, childcare and entrepreneurship. And so companies see that as the way that Indiana is standing out to grow our population, to grow our workforce, and ensure that no matter where they're going in the state, whether it's where we are in New Albany and Jeffersonville near River Ridge, whether it's in central Indiana, Fort Wayne, or up in New Carlisle, they will have the workforce and talent needed to have long-term success here.
Yeah, and I should mention that here at River Ridge in the Jeffersonville area, major announcement from Meta with a data center campus that will be going in here too. So certainly Southeast Indiana taking part in that movement. And so much, it seems that so much of what IEDC is involved with and doing now is, again, these forward-looking industries. Indiana, in the past number of months, has been designated as a federal hub for not just one, but three sectors of the economy, which I think is pretty amazing, just for a state or a region to get one. But we've got three as a state of Indiana. Talk about that and what this means, because it's in hydrogen and biotech and some of these forward-leaning industries.
Absolutely. We were one of three states to win all three of those federal hubs: Microelectronics Commons, Hydrogen Hub, and Tech Hub. My friend Mung Chang at Purdue says there was a 0.1% chance that any state would win all three, and Indiana was able to achieve that. And what that really means is not only an influx of tens of millions of federal dollars into these key economies of the future, but it also brings industry to the state to invest in these areas. It brings talent to the state to invest in these areas, additional research opportunities and commercialization from that research. And so while it's kind of been quiet and floating under the radar right now, I think over the next decade or so, we're really going to see those investments from those hubs really start to pay off in the state and continue to show why Indiana is a leader in these areas, whether it be microelectronics, clean energy with the hydrogen, our partnerships in Northwest Indiana, or the tech hubs and the focus on the One Health District.
Can you talk a little bit about hydrogen from at least a 50,000-foot view? David, because that you're looking at companies like BP and just really big companies looking to invest substantially in that technology, and Indiana would seem to be positioned geographically and otherwise, and with Lake Michigan and some of the other things. Talk about hydrogen and that industry, if you will, and how Indiana can play a part in it.
Yeah, we don't have mountains. We don't have, an ocean, but what I've been told is we have an incredible geologic framework for carbon capture and storage to then move into, green hydrogen as a clean energy source. And, Indiana is doing a lot in this area. We're number 4 in terms of clean energy projects under development in the United States, number 4. And so there is a lot of this momentum, whether it be in wind or solar or hydrogen, or otherwise, that it's taking that partnership between industry like BP, working with the universities, but also the utilities have stepped up, and they are incredible partners that we meet with on a monthly basis to talk not only about the business development pipeline and what's needed there, but also about how do we move the state forward and into these new technologies. And so hydrogen is a key one that research and development that's currently coming, I think will be one of the main power sources that we see, 20 years from now that drives not only the clean energy economy, but also the economics of the state.
One more question, David, before we hit a break here, and that's the electrification of the auto industry, which obviously the automakers are investing substantially in that, and many investing substantially in Indiana to make that happen. From a state perspective, how do you look at the adoption? There's been a lot of discussions certainly about the adoption of electric vehicles and how long that might take with the infrastructure and those types of things. I have people ask me, well, we're getting all these plants and doing all these things. Is the adoption going to be there soon enough to make these pay off? What's the state's view on that? Yeah,
my view is we have to be a leader in the next generation of mobility. It's been part of the state for over 100 years. When you look at IMS, started on the west side of Indianapolis as a test track for mobility automation. When you look at what we're doing in autonomous racing and sponsoring Andretti's team with the Formula E racing, then you look at EV adoption. All of this is tied together in terms of both the commercialization aspect, but also national security aspects as well to ensure those are being produced here. So we work very closely with our partners at industry, the university partners, and the federal government with their programs to ensure that we're not getting over our skis. Like I said, the investments that we do, we want to make sure they're around 50 plus years from now and continuing to add to the state's economy. And so this isn't just going out to get the large announcement and naming it and then letting it go by the wayside. We do our due diligence with our partners to ensure that these industries will be around for a long time. And when you hear names like Stellantis and GM and Samsung SDI, you have confidence that they're watching the market and they know what's needed to make those investments work. Samsung SDI has 3 EV battery plants in the United States. All 3 of them are in Indiana. And so we'll continue to support them and ensure that they're successful here for decades to come.
Bunch more ahead with Indiana Secretary of Commerce David Rosenberg, including his path to the Secretary of Commerce role. That and much more when the Business and Beyond podcast returns.
At PNC Bank, we're committed to making a difference in the lives of our customers and communities by helping them move forward financially. As a Main Street bank, we try to do right by our customers with every encounter. Our local teams offer personalized financial advice to help guide you in making the best decision. We're proud to be part of your community. PNC Bank. See how we can make a difference for you at pnc.com. Copyright 2022, the PNC Financial Services Group, Inc., all rights reserved.
Welcome back to the Business and Beyond podcast presented by PNC. My guest this week is a very busy guy, David Rosenberg, the Secretary of Commerce for the state of Indiana. IEDC, the Indiana Economic Development Corporation, setting records, big records when it comes to investment and jobs in economic development deals. And certainly that was the case in the first quarter of the year. Hey, David, as you look at the rest of the year, amazing first quarter. What's the pipeline? What's the outlook for the rest of the year?
It's still at historic levels. In these economies of the future, again, Indiana is standing out from a global perspective. And so we're very confident that we'll have even bigger announcements to come. We're excited about where the economy's headed in a lot of these industries, and our partners continue to flock to Indiana because of our aggressiveness in these industries, but the incredible stable business environment and workforce environment that we have here.
You mentioned strategy earlier in the IEDC, the state strategy of really going after the industries that the state wants to grow the economy. Another piece of the strategy is being built, is coming to reality in Boone County, the LEAP Innovation District, which essentially is getting a lot of ground together and attracting and locating forward-leaning industries. Eli Lilly and Company, their largest largest project, I should say, in company history, going up there, manufacturing operations. Talk about the concept, the LEAP concept, and then the idea is similar companies and other forward-leaning companies are going to locate in those types of things. Is that part of the future of IEDC and the state as you look to grow the economy?
Absolutely. And LEAP's been an incredible success so far, and the market has responded even a lot faster than we thought it would. But it was really born out of when Brad Chambers was named secretary in mid-2021, he brought me on as well. One of the first deals that came across our desk was the Intel deal that ultimately landed in Ohio. We took a good cut in the batter's box and gave it our best effort. I think we showed pretty well, but it was clear that Indiana was not ready for a deal of that size and that scale at that point. So we went to work really hard, talked to other secretaries of commerce around the state and these industries in these economies of the future, these companies in the economies of the future, to see what they needed, what would make Indiana more attractive. And thanks to the legislature, we were able to update and modernize our economic development toolkit, including creating new tools like the Innovation Development District, and then appropriating cash performance grants, which were both really key into winning a lot of these industries that have come to the state. But it was also clear from that Intel pursuit that we didn't have land. And the mantra now is speed is the new incentive. You have to have everything in place for a company to make that investment and get a return on that investment even sooner. And so the ability to have land under control, have zoning in place and annexed into a city if needed, have a plan for utilities, and have a development path ready to go is really attractive to companies. And it's been a great success. I do want to mention it's not just LEAP, which has been successful, but River Ridge is very much that same model. Up in New Carlisle with GM, AWS, the other investments, we've seen that. Purdue Research Park is another example of that. These companies want to cluster and be in the same ecosystem that drives the ideas, that drives the talent. LEAP does not compete with kind of the, what cities or towns are doing. These are mega sites, 500 plus acres up to, 1,500 acre sites that can attract that to an area. And so we've been really excited with the growth of LEAP already and are excited to see what comes forward over the next few years.
What is the outlook or the status of the outlook? Because at the LEAP project, a lot of attention paid to water supply, not for Lilly, but for perhaps future development there. I know that's being studied by another state agency. Give us an update on that water situation.
Yeah, Indiana as a state overall is blessed with an abundance of water. And I think if we utilize it correctly, it can really be an advantage over other states as we're attracting business and further growth in the state. And so we have a path to phase one that can get up to 25 million gallons per day, working with a couple different utilities here in the state. And then we're waiting those results of the phase two study from the Indiana Finance Authority, which should be out later this summer to really set what that long-term vision, not only for LEAP will look like, but for what the central Indiana water solution needs to look like. And I want to highlight that, I think a lot of people are working on that now. Without more water, central Indiana as a whole will experience, has the potential to experience shortages over the next decade, just with the projected growth. And so while we see LEAP as an economic development catalyst to help unlock resources to pay for some of that solution, that's really a solution for the entire region.
And as you look at that water situation, when you're going after these data centers and microelectronics types of investments, those are big water users, right? So it kind of puts even added emphasis on the need to have that piece of it figured out.
Absolutely. Water and also power. And again, I want to highlight, our utility partners, they have really stepped up and come to the table and are working within the regulatory framework that they have to be as creative and forward-looking as possible. And that's why we've been able to continue to win these deals because, we get the right partners around the table and work through the problems to create the solutions that a company needs to locate here.
So on the personal side, David, how did David Rosenberg get to be Secretary of Commerce? Was this the kind of role that you envisioned, taking on at some point? How did you get there?
Yeah. So I went to IU undergrad and IU Law School in Bloomington. In law school, I quickly realized I did not want to be an attorney, but I did meet my wife in law school, so not all was lost by that endeavor. I'd always been kind of drawn to the policy, the operations side. And so I did a couple internships at the city when Mayor Ballard was mayor. The first one was at the city's Corporation Counsel office when Chris Cotterill was the Corporation Counsel. Chris became the mayor's chief of staff that next year. So the next summer, I did an internship at the mayor's office. And one thing led to another, and was lucky enough in May of 2011 to be hired onto the mayor's team. He was up for re-election in November of 2011, so it could have been a really short stint, but thankfully he won re-election and was able to stay for most of his second term. What really stuck out, Mayor Ballard is just a phenomenal person, did the right thing, even if it wasn't the most politically expedient thing to do. But what he really did was not micromanage. It was that Marine background where he built the team and he enabled the team to go run. And so early in my career, I got to see that from a great leader, but then also working with some incredible people on the team. I mentioned Chris and Ryan Vaughn and Michael Huber, Adam Collins, Darren Kidner, Jen Pittman, all of these folks who really helped build my career over time. And then once the mayor decided not to run for a third term, I joined Indianapolis Public Schools, the largest K through 12 school district in the state under Dr. Farabee. Again, much of that same leadership style, focused on what was the right thing to do, even if it caused some controversy, and got to work on some great projects there, including the sale of what is now Bottle Works. That was an old IPS storage facility and bus depot. And we wanted to get that back on the tax rolls. And so worked with Hendricks to, do that sale and help redevelop that property. Then went into kind of business consulting and lobbying. And, when Brad got named, we got reconnected. And this is where my passion is: economic development, community development. And so it was a great opportunity to come back and do what I was doing at the city level, now on a statewide level, with a great team, and learned a ton from Brad, and has certainly had a huge impact. Never thought he would jump into the race, and was lucky enough that Governor Holcomb, appointed me in August to do this. And so proud of the IDC team, not just for what's been accomplished, but the culture, the teamwork that's been built. Ann Lathrop, who's part of the governor's cabinet and chief strategy officer at IDC, is absolutely phenomenal. And, we are a true partnership. She's usually my first call in the morning and last one at night as we, cross-check against each other. But the entire team and what they've been able to do through the changes, through the uncertainty, that's what I'll be most proud of throughout the rest of my time here.
And you're a native Hoosier, right? You grew up. Talk about growing up in Indiana. And does that, impact in the role you're in now, driving jobs and investment for Indiana, that Indiana, those Indiana roots maybe play a role in your mindset these days?
It's really personal to me. I was born in Jeffersonville, grew up in south side of Indy, and like I said, I went down to IU for undergrad and law school, but knew we wanted to be here. Had friends go, Chicago or Nashville or Austin, but we knew we wanted to be here for family and the values and what the state means to us. And now I have 3 kids, 5 and under, and I want them to have every single opportunity to not only succeed here, but to reinvest themselves here and to have opportunities at jobs and community, and not just them, but every Hoosier child of the future to be able to stay here, be successful, have the prosperity of the life that they not only want, but that they deserve.
Final question for you, looking forward, looking ahead, David, to the rest of 2024. I know you mentioned earlier the pipeline sounds like it is indeed very full. How do you envision the rest of 2024 kind of playing out, maybe some big milestones or events that might be out there over the course of 2024?
We have the Global Economic Summit. This is the second year that we've done this, coming up at the end of May. Incredible speaker lineup with a lot of focus on AI and semiconductors and bio life science. And so please go check out the website. We're already up to over 800 attendees, but an incredible lineup of speakers that will be there. This is really talking about the issues of the day, but not just talk about them. How can we work together to really solve them? And so it was hugely impactful for the first one in 2022, and really looking forward to this year's event. Coincidentally, maybe not so coincidentally, ties to the greatest spectacle in racing and the largest single-day sporting event. So we're looking forward to that. Throughout the summer, we really want to start to roll out a lot of the Ready 2 programs, but also the Lilly Endowment funding and the programs that'll be funded by the endowment. That was an incredible partnership. The IDC was blessed enough to receive the largest single investment in Lilly Endowment history, $250 million to be a complement to the READY program. And so we want to start working with regions to name those projects over the summer. And then, there's always things that pop up. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of good news to continue to share. I know the governor is not taking his foot off the gas pedal, and so we'll continue to run through the end of his administration and ensure there's a seamless and smooth handoff to the next administration to make sure that Indiana continues to remain in position to be the place to do business.
David Rosenberg, Indiana Secretary of Commerce. David, really appreciate you taking the time to join us on the podcast. Congratulations on the continued success and keeping Indiana in the headlines. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks so much, Gary.
All right. And thank you for joining us on this episode of the Business and Beyond podcast. It is a weekly conversation with achievers in business, sports, entertainment, and beyond. And you can download all of our episodes and also get Indiana business news 24/7. All you have to do is go to InsideIndianaBusiness.com. I'm Gary Dick. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.